In this topic, sets and Venn diagram, we are dealing with a lot of symbols, and the symbols is actually translated to words. So when we translate the symbols to words or words to symbols, it forms another type of language. So in this topic, right, sometimes we call it like sets language. So that means, right, the words is representative of certain, the symbols is representative of certain words. So mentally, you need to translate the symbol to words and words to symbol. Okay, and eventually, because of the language, right, it will lead us to drawing of some Venn diagram. So the language is meant to link certain features of the things that we already learned so far, like the normal algebra that we learned, like the properties of shapes, or the angles properties of shapes that you have learned so far. So it will just encompass a lot of other concepts, but it creates a different language. So this topic is very language based uh, by using symbols. So that's one thing that when you start this topic, you need to get used to the different symbols. So for the so I divided this topic into a variety of concepts. So we'll go according to the concept, so that it's easier to identify what you know and what you don't know. So the first one is the most basic. So when we define a set, so a set is like a collection of well-defined items. So what do we mean by well-defined? Okay, so we need to define the items that we want very well, so that we don't have any ambiguity. Like I don't know what is this and that. So later on we'll come into a bit more idea on being well defined. But then at this moment, we will just take it as everything is well defined. That means, right, for sure I will know what are prime numbers. For sure I will know what are the alphabets in what are the 26 alphabets. So all these are called quite a set of defined objects. Okay, there is no ambiguity. Okay, so when there is no ambiguity, we consider it well defined. So the objects, right, we're going to call it element or member. Most of the time, we'll call it element. So we're dealing with a lot of variety of elements, and then we are going to use round brackets, not round brackets, curly bracket as the house of elements. Okay, so this there will be these examples that introduce you to the elements. So if you look at the description in example 1, A is a set of prime numbers less than 10. So you need to recall what are prime numbers. So the smallest prime number is 2. It doesn't start from 1. So, so you got to recall. And then how are we going to express it? We express it in a round bracket. Not round bracket. I keep saying the wrong thing. Curly bracket. So that is the house of element. So what are the prime numbers? 2, 3, 5, 7. So these are the elements that are less than 10. So you got to describe. So based on the description, we comes out with the element. Okay, in the second example, B is the set of vowels in English alphabets. So this one, sometimes some people might not know or forget what is called vowels. Vowels are A, E, I, O, U. So vowels are A, E, I, O, U. So you might be thinking, so if it's non-vowels, what do we call it? So in case you didn't know, if it's not vowels, it's consonants. So there, in the English alphabets, A to Z, we got 26. So we got 26. 5 falls under vowels, and then the other 21s are called consonants. Okay, so these elements come from the alphabet, the English alphabet. Okay, so it can be such thing like C is the set of days in a week. So which are the days in a week? So the days we have in a week is like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So these are the days in a week. So that became an element based on the description. So we use curly brackets to house the element. Okay, the next one, example 4, D is the set of months starting with J. Okay, D is the set of months starting with J. So maybe some of you got to run through mentally the 12 months. So that will be January, June, and July. So it can be a lot, the elements can be a lot of variety. So it can be like the names of girls that starts with K. Okay, the names of girls that start with A in the class. So that can become element as well. Okay, so it's just that they need to describe properly what is the element that you're facing with. Okay, so understand that elements can be a variety, depends on the description, and then we use the curly bracket to house the element. Okay, then it's also related to concept number 2. Okay, so if you are asked to list the element, that means, right, you're going to be doing it in the curly bracket. This is the idea of listing. And if we need to describe the elements, okay, we describe it in words. So for example, this one I want to describe it in words. And there's another way of describing. We use set notation to describe. So I'm going to show you in this concept. So if you look at 2, 3, 5, 7, it is the set of prime numbers. Set of prime numbers less than 10. So we use words to describe. However, if I'm going to describe the same thing using set notation, it actually looks like this. So you'll realize that there will be something like x colon. That means, right, all these values are x. All these are the x values, and x is the set of prime number less than 10. So sometimes the colon part can be confusing for some of you. Sometimes the colon part can be confusing for some of you. Okay, but we will still be using curly brackets if you realize. Okay, or sometimes, right, in the set notation, we will use a bit more symbol, something like less than 10. So in the set notation, it's okay to use symbols, but in the description, it's usually more like you do it in words, using words. So then B, M, A, T, C, H, this is a set of alphabets in the words match. So if I put it in set notation, okay, it will be like X colon. So X is such that, so that means they are telling you all the alphabets are X. So X is the alphabets from the word match. But there is still a curly bracket. So in the set notation, right, the curly bracket is like the house for elements. Okay, so for the last one, you realize that there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it's never ending. So this one, some of you might forgot what is that. So this is actually natural number. So it is the set of natural numbers. So this is done in Sec 1, so a lot of people couldn't remember what is natural number. So natural numbers are known as counting numbers. It is the numbers that you count with. So for example, if you count the number of pens in your pencil case, you will count 1, 2, 3, 4. As you take out, you will count 1, 2, 3. You will not start counting with 0. So that's why 0 is not a natural number. We don't count naturally with 0. So natural numbers are counting numbers. And obviously, we also don't count with fraction. We don't count with decimal. So when we count items, that number that we use to count is called natural numbers. And if I'm going to write it in a set notation, it will be x. That means all the natural numbers are x. So x is a natural number. And I'm not going to give a boundary. You realize it's not like a natural number less than 10 or something like that. Because it's never ending, there's no limit to it. Okay, so that is the introduction, like, okay, what are we dealing with? So you're dealing with a variety of elements, depends on the description, and the description can be in words or set notation. And when you are asked to list element, you got to list it with the curly bracket. So you got to put the elements in the curly bracket, because during exam, a lot of people don't put curly bracket. Okay, so this is also related to the next concept. The next concept required you to count the number of elements in a set. So the symbol will be something like this. So when we say NA, it's like the number of elements. How many elements are there in set A? So if we do a NB, that means how many elements in set B? So we're going to go back to example 1 to 4. So if you go back to example 1 to 4, prime numbers, there are 4 elements. A got 4 elements. So that means it's something like NA, there are 4 elements. There are 5 consonants, 5 hours, sorry. And there are 7 days. And then there are 3 months. There are 3 months that starts with J. So usually that comes hand in hand. So the N symbolizes how many. So when you see the symbol N, that means you're supposed to count. So it's a language that you got to translate. Okay, so it's a bit like, why do they come out with the language, right? It's just a translation of language, symbols into language. Then it actually tells you to do something. So 4, 5, 7, 3. That means, right, that is the counting. So later on, throughout the whole of this topic, you're going to learn more symbols. So when you're going to learn more symbols, you're going to count different things. But it will be standardized. When you see N, you are supposed to count. It is a matter of what are you counting. So later on, you've got more things to count when you learn more symbols. So that is the basic concept of elements, listing elements, description of elements, and counting elements.